My girlfriend texted, "Oh, I totally forgot about dinner tonight. I'm at the office party, can we do this tomorrow instead?" After I'd been waiting 2 hours alone at the restaurant to celebrate my biggest promotion, I simply replied, "Don't worry about it." Then I quietly moved out that week and stopped covering my 70% of our rent and expenses. She's now frantically calling everyone we know, asking how to reach me after being forced to move back in with her sister. I'm Ryan Mitchell, 31, and I used to believe that love meant always being the accommodating one. For 2 years with Lauren Hayes, I had perfected the art of understanding, planning, and forgiving. She was everything I thought I wanted: beautiful, charismatic, full of infectious energy. She worked in marketing for a boutique agency and had this magnetic personality that drew people in effortlessly. I was drawn too, perhaps fatally so. The pattern had established itself so gradually that I barely noticed how one-sided everything had become. I was naturally detail-oriented. My job as a systems engineer trained me to think ahead, anticipate problems, create solutions. Lauren lived beautifully in the moment, and I convinced myself our differences complemented each other perfectly. I became the relationship coordinator by default. I researched restaurants, booked weekend getaways, remembered anniversaries, and handled logistics. When we moved in together after 8 months, I found the apartment, coordinated movers, set up utilities. When Lauren suggested I cover 70% of the rent since I earned more, I agreed without question. It seemed practical at the time, but Lauren's approach to our shared commitments was different. She'd get caught up in spontaneous plans and forget our dinner reservations. I'd reschedule without complaint, telling myself her spontaneity was charming. She'd promise to help with household tasks, then disappear for weekend shopping trips with her sister, leaving me to handle everything alone. I rationalized it as supporting her social needs. The first serious crack appeared 6 months ago when we were supposed to sign paperwork for a car we decided to buy together. Lauren had been excited about having reliable transportation for work events. We'd spent weeks researching options, negotiating with dealers, arranging financing. The signing appointment was scheduled for a Tuesday afternoon, and she'd promised to meet me at the dealership. I waited an hour and a half while the sales manager kept apologizing and offering coffee. Finally, Lauren texted, "OMG Ryan, totally lost track of time. At this amazing pool party with clients. This is so good for networking. Can you handle the paperwork? You're better at that stuff anyway." I signed the documents alone, drove the new car home alone, and spent that evening explaining why I felt hurt. She listened with apparent remorse, bought my favorite coffee the next morning, and promised it wouldn't happen again. I believed her because I wanted to, but it did happen again. My birthday dinner became a quick lunch the next day because she double-booked with a friend's crisis. The family barbecue where she was supposed to meet my parents got canceled on her end because she'd forgotten about helping her roommate move. Each time brought apologies, small gifts, and promises to do better. Each time, I found myself accepting less while giving more. The most painful incident before that final dinner happened 3 months ago. My grandmother was in the hospital, and I'd arranged for Lauren to meet my extended family for a serious discussion about Grandma's care. This wasn't casual, it was about someone I loved deeply, and I wanted Lauren to understand this important part of my life. I sent reminder texts. She responded enthusiastically, promising she'd be there by 2 p.m. 2 o'clock came and went. At 3, I called, no answer. At 4, as relatives asked where she was, I felt that familiar sinking feeling. She texted at 5, "Babe, you know how Saturdays are crazy. Got pulled into this last-minute spa day with work girls. Team bonding, tell your family I said hi." I made excuses for her absence, handled the difficult conversations alone, and drove home feeling completely isolated. When Lauren came home glowing from spa treatments and bubbling with stories, I tried explaining how abandoned I'd felt during such an important family moment. She listened while scrolling through photos on her phone. "You're being really dramatic about this," she said finally. "It's not like your grandmother died, and you handled everything fine without me. You always do. That's what I love about you, how independent you are." Independent. She used that word whenever she wanted to justify leaving me to handle something alone. I wasn't independent by choice, I'd been forced into independence because depending on her had proven impossible. But I stayed. I stayed because I loved her laugh, because she made me feel needed, because I'd invested so much in building our life together. I stayed hoping that patience and understanding would eventually make her see how much I was giving and start reciprocating. The promotion dinner was supposed to be different. I'd gotten the biggest career advancement of my life, senior systems architect, with a $20,000 raise and my own team. It was the culmination of 3 years of extra hours, weekend certifications, and project leadership. I was genuinely excited and wanted to share that with the person I loved most. I'd made reservations at Meridian, the upscale restaurant where we'd had our first anniversary dinner. I specifically asked Lauren to keep the evening free, explained how much this achievement meant to me, and even ordered a celebration cake from their pastry chef. This wasn't casual, this was a milestone I wanted to commemorate together. Lauren had seemed genuinely excited when I told her about the promotion. "Ryan, that's incredible. You've worked so hard for this. I'm so proud of you. Of course I'll be there. I wouldn't miss celebrating you for anything." Her enthusiasm felt sincere, and I allowed myself to believe this would be special. I arrived 15 minutes early and settled into our reserved table. The atmosphere was perfect, soft lighting, quiet jazz, elegant but comfortable. I ordered champagne and waited, checking my phone occasionally but not worried yet. Lauren often ran a few minutes late. By 7, I was checking more frequently. The server had approached twice asking about appetizers, and I'd politely declined, explaining I was waiting for someone. Other couples were being seated, ordering, laughing together. I sat alone with untouched champagne, trying not to feel self-conscious. 7:30, I called straight to voicemail. Now I was genuinely concerned. Had something happened? Traffic, work emergency, some kind of crisis? I texted her sister Madison. "Hey, have you heard from Lauren tonight? We had dinner plans and can't reach her." Madison responded quickly. "She's at the office party at that rooftop bar downtown." Looked like she was having a great time from her Instagram stories. I opened Instagram with growing dread. Lauren's stories from the past 2 hours showed her laughing with coworkers, holding cocktails, posing against city skyline views. She looked radiant, completely absorbed in the moment. The most recent story, posted 10 minutes ago, showed her raising a toast with colleagues. That's when my phone buzzed. "Oh, I totally forgot about dinner tonight. I'm at the office party. Can we do this tomorrow instead? This networking is so important for my career." I stared at that message for a long time, sitting alone with the celebration cake positioned between empty chairs. The server approached again, sympathy in her eyes. "Would you like to order, sir, or wait a bit longer?" "I'll be dining alone tonight," I said, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. "Could you bring that cake we ordered? I'd like to celebrate my promotion." As I ate that cake alone, each bite tasting like disappointment and clarity combined, I felt something fundamental shift inside me. This wasn't hurt or anger, it was recognition. Lauren hadn't forgotten about dinner. She'd made a choice. She'd prioritized a work party over celebrating the biggest achievement of my career. But more than that, I realized this was who she had always been. I'd spent 2 years making excuses for her behavior, reframing selfishness as spontaneity, thoughtlessness as free spirit. I'd convinced myself that patience and accommodation would eventually be reciprocated. Sitting alone with that cake, I finally understood she would never reciprocate because she didn't value what I offered. My reliability wasn't treasured, it was taken for granted. My accommodation wasn't seen as love, it was seen as weakness. My emotional investment wasn't matched, it was exploited by her assumption that I'd always be there regardless of how poorly she treated me. Lauren came home around midnight, slightly drunk and effusively apologetic. "Baby, I'm so sorry, time just got away from me and you know how important networking is. We'll celebrate tomorrow, I promise, I'll make it up to you." I looked at her, really looked, and saw someone who believed her charm could smooth over any hurt she caused, who thought her apologies erased the impact of her choices. "It's fine," I said quietly. "I understand completely." She seemed relieved by my calm response, chattering about the party as she got ready for bed. I sat in our living room until she fell asleep, then began making decisions that would change everything. Over the next week, I moved methodically and quietly. I found a smaller apartment across town, gave notice on our shared lease, and began transferring my belongings during her work hours. I wasn't angry or vindictive, I was simply done waiting for someone who would never prioritize me. I didn't want dramatic confrontation or lengthy explanation. Lauren had made her position clear through 2 years of actions. my response would be equally clear. I was removing myself from a dynamic that had become toxic to my self-respect. The day I moved my last box, I left a simple note on the kitchen counter along with my keys. Lauren, I've moved out and won't be continuing the lease here. I've transferred my name off all shared accounts and utilities. I used to believe that love meant waiting endlessly for someone to choose you. I've learned that real love requires mutual respect and prioritization. I hope you find someone whose company you actually prefer to a work party. I won't be waiting to find out. Ryan. I also stopped covering my 70% of the rent and utilities, which meant Lauren would need to cover the full cost herself or find somewhere else to live. The first few weeks in my new apartment felt strange but liberating. The space was smaller but entirely mine. Every piece of furniture had been chosen by me, every decision made according to my preferences. I enrolled in a photography class I'd always wanted to take, joined a hiking group, and started going to the gym regularly. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from Lauren, first confused, then angry, then pleading. Ryan, what the hell, you can't just disappear without talking. Evolved into please call me, we need to work this out, and finally I'm sorry, okay? I know I messed up, but this is crazy. I didn't respond to any of them. There was nothing left to discuss. The consequences for Lauren came swiftly. Without my financial contribution, she couldn't afford the apartment we'd shared. Her marketing job, while prestigious sounding, paid significantly less than my engineering position. Within a month, she was forced to move back in with her sister Madison. Through mutual friends, I heard about Lauren's increasingly desperate attempts to maintain her previous lifestyle without the financial foundation I'd provided. She picked up freelance projects, borrowed money from family, and gradually had to scale back the shopping trips and expensive dinners that had defined her social life. Meanwhile, my own life was expanding in ways I hadn't expected. Without constantly accommodating Lauren's schedule and preferences, I discovered interests and friendships that had been dormant. The hiking group led to weekend camping trips. The photography class connected me with people who shared my appreciation for careful observation and patient craft. 3 months after I moved out, I ran into Madison at a coffee shop. She looked uncomfortable but approached me anyway. Ryan, I know it's not my place, but Lauren is really struggling. She keeps saying she didn't realize how much you did for everything. She's been asking everyone if they know how to reach you. I hope she figures things out, I said genuinely, but that's not my responsibility anymore. Madison nodded slowly. She said you were the most reliable person she'd ever been with. She just took that for granted, I think. Some people don't value reliability until it's gone, I replied. I learned I'd rather be alone than be someone's safety net while they explore more interesting options. 4 months after leaving, I started dating Sarah, a fellow engineer who'd recently joined my company. Our first date was supposed to be coffee, but we ended up talking for 4 hours, walking through the city, sharing stories about projects and travel dreams. When she said she needed to leave for a previous commitment, she actually left and texted later asking when we could meet again. The difference was startling. Sarah valued punctuality, kept her promises, and seemed genuinely interested in building something together rather than having someone build something for her. When I told her about Lauren, not in detail, just the basic pattern, she looked puzzled. Why would someone repeatedly disappoint a person they claim to care about? She asked. That seems exhausting for everyone involved. It was exhausting. I'd been exhausted for 2 years without fully recognizing it. 6 months after I'd stopped waiting, Lauren found my new address somehow and showed up at my apartment on a Saturday morning. She looked smaller than I remembered, less polished, more vulnerable. Ryan, please just give me 5 minutes, she said when I answered the door. I know I screwed up, I know I took you for granted. I've changed, I'm in therapy now, working on my issues with commitment and prioritization. I miss you so much. I looked at her and felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction at her apparent distress, not temptation to resume our old dynamic. Just a calm recognition that this chapter of my life was completely closed. I'm glad you're working on yourself, I said honestly, but I've moved on completely. What we had wasn't healthy for either of us, but especially not for me. I hope therapy helps you build better relationships in the future. But we were good together, she insisted. We had so much history, so many good times. Can't we try again? I promise I'll be different. The good times happened when I was doing all the emotional and logistical labor, I said gently. That's not sustainable and it's not love. It's one person accommodating another person's inability to be a true partner. She started crying then, and part of me felt sorry for her, but a larger part recognized that her tears were likely more about losing security than losing me specifically. I've learned something important, I continued. I deserve someone who chooses me consistently, not someone who needs crisis and consequences to realize my value. You taught me that lesson, even if you didn't mean to. I wished her well and closed the door. She didn't try to contact me again after that. A year later, Sarah and I moved in together, and the difference in how we handled shared responsibility was remarkable. We split household tasks based on preference and availability. We kept shared calendars and actually honored commitments to each other. When one of us needed support during a stressful time, the other provided it without keeping score. Most importantly, neither of us had to wait endlessly for the other to prioritize our relationship. We both showed up consistently, making the kind of small daily choices that build genuine partnership over time. I occasionally wonder if Lauren learned anything from our relationship's end. I hope she did, for her own sake, and for anyone who might love her in the future. But whether she changed or not is no longer my concern. The day I stopped waiting was the day I started living according to my actual worth, rather than settling for someone else's limited estimation of it. Some people will always see accommodation as weakness and reliability as something to exploit. Learning to identify those people early and having enough self-respect to walk away when they reveal themselves might be the most valuable skill anyone can develop. The most profound relationships are built by two people who both show up consistently, who both prioritize each other's well-being, who both understand that love is demonstrated through actions over time rather than promised through words after disappointment. I stopped waiting for someone who would never choose me, and in doing so, I chose myself. That choice led me to someone who chooses me daily, just as I choose her. The difference is life-changing. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop waiting for someone to see your worth and start living like you already know it yourself.